He placed the file squarely in front of him, and his hand rummaged again in the open drawer. The hand brought out a rubber stamp and a red ink pad. M opened the pad, tapped the rubber stamp on it, and then, carefully, so that it was properly aligned with the top right-hand corner of the docket, pressed it down on the grey cover. M replaced the stamp and the ink pad in the drawer and closed the drawer. He turned the docket round and pushed it gently across the desk to Bond. The red sans-serif letters, still damp, said, "For your eyes only."
Welcome to the James Bond Complex. My name's Matt.
I'm Edgar.
And we are a James Bond-related podcast that tackles the entire James Bond phenomenon from the original Fleming books to the films and everything in between. Mm. Yes, of course. And today we are doing a special book. The first short story collection titled For Your Eyes Only. It features From A View to a Kill, For Your Eyes Only, Quantum of Solace, Risico, and the Hildebrand Rarity. For this particular book, we are actually going to break this book in two. There's quite a lot of material to cover, and to do it proper justice, we're going to break this episode in two.
It's not because it's a short story that there isn't necessarily not a lot to talk about. It's still James Bond, which gets us going. So.
You should see my notes for Your Eyes Only.
I'm terrified.
You should be. Since we're going to share duties for the synopsis.
And I think first on the list is From a View to a Kill.
From a View to a Kill.
I was waiting for you to start reading something. Yeah, here's something different. I'm doing a plot synopsis for a book.
You haven't done that.
I don't think I've ever done it.
No, you've done one. Didn't you do? I think you did Live and Let Die.
I might have done Live and Let Die.
Was it Moonraker? One of those. We actually.
Those crazy early days when we didn't know what we were doing.
Yes.
We were so naive. Story number 1 in this collection is titled From a View to a Kill. An early morning dispatch motorbike rider operating in France for a Western intelligence collective is himself dispatched by a mysterious assailant while on his daily commute. Labyrinthine politicking between various intelligence branches eventually has Bond land in France to investigate, which starts with every heterosexual man's best wet dream, a drop-dead gorgeous woman driving fast through heavy traffic, parking next to the cafe, and walking straight up to Bond, much to his surprise. And she's his contact in France. The name's Marianne Russell. Word within the organization Bond is helping is that their house inspectors sifted the area of the disappearance with a finely toothed comb, but no clues were left behind as to what happened. 007 gets the idea to become one with nature and sniff out any details in the nearby woods. By happenstance, 007 comes to learn of a closed-off secret enclave housing a cell of Soviet agents. Dun, dun, dun. Mm-hmm. Having spotted his view to a kill, Bond cleverly devises a plot to take out the trio of enemy agents, but not without some last-second help from Marianne. The mission complete, Bond and Marianne do what the French do best.
Bravo.
I felt out of my element. It's a book. I don't like book. I'm joking, but I was so nervous writing this.
You did good. Lots of things to unpack here.
Starts with a bang. Literally, it starts with a bang. Quite an intense and shocking start to the story.
Blam.
Yeah, no kidding. And this poor guy who works for this SHAPE, I think this is what this intelligence collective is.
I don't know what the acronym stands for. It's
say it, but I don't remember what it is.
And I'm sorry to ask you, but I think you might know more about this subject than I did. I don't know if you reviewed the book that you what's the Bond book about the movies?
James Bond Archives?
No, the other one.
Some Kind of Hero?
Some Kind of Hero. Because from what I heard, that particular book is comprised of short stories that were initially designed to be episodes on a proposed James Bond TV show back in the 1950s.
I can't claim that's ringing any bells.
Oh, really?
It's not even ringing a distant bell.
Because I should have checked. And I've been also curious about this book because I think it's around the time that Fleming had his first heart attack.
Jeez, you know what? I got to really brush up on my Fleming history. I know
Well-
he had several of them before he passed away, and he passed away in 64.
64. This is 60, so 59.
Yeah, he's in his health. It has started to dwindle by now.
Yes.
I don't know exactly when he started having his heart attacks, but we are in that period of his life. Yeah.
The later Fleming. So yeah, I don't have the details, but I'm fairly certain those were supposed to be episodes on a proposed James Bond TV show, and I'm wondering if Shape would have been TV James Bond's secret operative agencies if he would have worked for MI6 as he does in the books and in the real movies, or if they would have contacted this Shape as his the agency he would have worked for the TV show.
Really? I don't know. Why would there? Do you think there anything? I can't speak today. Do you think anything would have prevented the producers of the TV show from using British Secret Service as a base of operations? Or?
It would have made it more international by making it Shape. It's
Would have made it more like The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh, before the Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Fleming had an influence on the Man from U.N.C.L.E. So I don't know. Honestly, I have no sources. I'm just
maybe this is very, very
proto
Man from U.N.C.L.E. without,
Perhaps.
well, of course, that we have no confirmation on that. But it's an interesting thought, though.
perhaps. But the story itself originally was supposed to be. The originally was the rough and the smooth.
I think I've heard that before.
Which is not very
It's a bit bizarre
sexy. It's not sexy.
title.
I prefer From a View to a Kill.
Yeah, which I did not know. I did not know what that meant until recently. Apparently, it is an actual hunting term. When you go out hunting for something, you find your spot, your view to a kill. The kill being your prey. I thought that was just some sort of fancy ass phrase that Fleming came up with.
No, it's I always figured it was a hunting term, but I never like. But from what you're describing makes sense. Like it's the spot to make your kill. So,
Which is both what the villains do when they're on their motorbikes and what Bond does to discover this bizarre little hiding spot in the middle of the forest.
it feels TV-like. It feels like something that you would have seen in something like the 1960s Avengers, not the Marvel ones, but the.
I've seen a couple of those.
Those are weird by from time to time.
Yeah,
So.
they're enjoyable. What I've seen, I've liked. But is it like 60s British humor that's flying over my head? Maybe. We're not British, never lived there, don't know their culture particularly well. But there's like something about it. I'm like, oh, I like this, but this is weird.
It's really. It's also the 60s, so I think it's just weird because people were high on drugs.
Oh, yeah. Good times. You sound high on drugs right now.
Yeah, mouthing and puffing. We get a view of Paris in the 1950s.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something? About a decade ago, me and some friends did a European tour, so to speak. We were rock stars. And we spent a few days in Paris. I had read this short story. I've been to Café Fouquin. I've ordered that drink.
Nice.
We're in Paris. Is that cafe real? It is? Does that drink really exist? It does?
Yeah, I tend to get excited when we get to 4 hours only. I have notes on the trip. We could actually go to Lake Echo and probably go to the same trail.
Probably not far from where
It's
we're
not far
recording
from
this.
here.
We're in Station MC, so it can't be that far. And he goes to Vermont. And he spends a couple nights in Montreal and in Ottawa.
No, he doesn't. He spends his nights in Longueuil. It's the south of Montreal.
Right.
So it's not as sexy. So they find the driver, the bike, basically a motorbike messenger gets shot. They steal some of his stuff. They steal his satchel with all the messages, all the notes. That's going to be sent to
It's a
Shape.
counterintelligence operation, essentially. Yeah,
They hide his body, And when they find him, they realize that because of the way he's been shot, they realize that it gets bizarre because they are like, okay, either like he must have known or assumed that it was a friendly person that was meeting him. So I guess Bond figures out they assume the identity of another shape agent.
Exactly. Which is kind of a clever way of doing that. I mean, if it's too difficult to infiltrate Shape's base of operations, which it seems the description of how Bond needs to get there looks pretty high security. I don't think just anybody can get in there. So I guess you do the next best thing. You sort of pay attention to how their couriers, what their trajectory is, and you observe it, you study it, you take note of the time, you timestamp your notes, and when they leave and this and that. And if you're good enough, it'd be interesting to know, well, how did they get those first few uniforms?
Yeah.
Maybe that was a little slightly more dangerous escapade, because now that they have the uniform, they can just sneak up behind them. Because this poor bastard who gets shot, unfortunately, he doesn't really think there's anything wrong. He thinks it's a little weird that another one of his colleagues is on the same route as he is at that time of day, given his mission, which like I don't ride with anybody else usually, but they're wearing friendly uniforms, so I don't need to stress out too much about this. But I do like that idea. I like that idea of the simplicity, relative simplicity in an execution and smuggling, not smuggling, but we'll get to smugglers, an assassination and counter-espionage operation. It doesn't have to be super high-tech, It
is
Just
very Fleming-esque, because Fleming, most of the spycraft from the novels is very basic and simple. We associate Bond with technology and super gadgets because of the movie, but Fleming's Bond is very, like, depends on his wits and his tradecraft, which is, he uses technology, but it's not his main tool. Like, he doesn't need.
Well, I mean, what's his gadget in this book? Like snowshoes. So, like the weight of his body is properly dispersed, so that when he's sneaking in the woods, like, he doesn't break too many twigs, which would make it sound. That's his gadget, snowshoes.
Yeah,
it's like, which is cool. I mean, I like that. That's why I like, doing this show. But just, it gives us the opportunity to go back to Fleming. As the delightful Barbara always likes to say, go back to Fleming, go back to what's what we're doing. But because I don't read the books as often as I watch the films, it's always a nice reminder of, let's get down to the basics. Let's get down to spycraft.
It's a very enjoyable aspect of the books to rediscover.
I do kind of like that early sequence when he's at the Chic Fouquet and he's having this drink and he's sort of reminiscing a little bit. We find out that he lost his virginity in France, which was kind of an interesting little detail. And that's why I wanted to bring it up in my synopsis. It's very short, so I felt like I had to pad it a little bit. I brought up Marianne and Russell because her introduction is quite an introduction.
No,
it's heavy traffic. She's sort of zipping through cars. She parks right next to the cafe. And Bond is sort of like in this haze, like, wow, this girl's really hot. Like, oh, I'd like her to come up to me. Huh? She's coming up to me. And there's this little moment when she like says hello or whatever, however she introduces herself. Like, he has to get out of his daydream. Like, he did not expect her. He did not expect this super hot, beautiful woman to walk up to him, which is kind of like, don't we all have those moments? I'm like, wouldn't it be awesome if this, I have to straighten my tie.
Also, there's a part where I think he's alone in her car, and he pays attention to the interior of her car, and she's a little bit of a hoarder, not a hoarder, but it's messy. Like there's bits of her. He says there's bits of her everywhere, whether it's the lipstick or some pieces of food, whatever. She seems to be a bit messy.
We don't see much of her though, just for a few pages at the start, and then at the last page when she's the one that kills. I think there's one bad guy left, and I think he has Bond in his.
She kills one of them, but the other ones are like, "Oh no, there's a lady!" And she pops up from behind one of the guys, and I think he notices a woman leg first. So the way I imagine it's kind of like cartoony, but a little bit sexy. Yeah, but she's. I mean, all these books don't have much story, but they have intriguing character, and she's rather intriguing. She's probably the highlight from the story.
Yeah, she's got a little bit of spunk to her. I mean, she's not. I know we tend to try to sort of evaluate the Bond girls per book, but it's easier it's easier in the novels because we see more of them.
Yeah.
We got tons of Bond girls in this Bond book. What am I trying to say? But we don't see any of them for very long, and especially Marianne Russell. We'll see maybe a couple of them for a little bit longer, but Marianne Russell, we don't really see her. But she seems fine.
She has a bit where she talks about Frenchmen and how they're always pinching her butt.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. She bruises. She has bruises because of that on her butt.
What did you think of the part where Bond is just sitting in a bush or whatever, like waiting for something to happen, and he sees like this, like a flower or a bud, like.
That's when I said it reminded me of the Avengers. That's what, like, this is Avengers. Also, the Prisoners had stuff like that. Yeah, it's just like bizarre. And like, I would actually, even today, they could actually. There's elements in that short story. They made A View to a Kill as a movie, but the short story, except for the. Well, we'll get there when we get there. But
it's like for Paris.
Yeah, there's nothing. But there's little bits like that they could actually recycle. And I like the idea of a flower telescope just popping from.
You know what? I got a great idea for Barbara and Mick G. It's not really much of a surprise. The Spectre budget was completely insane. The movie didn't make quite as much money as the previous one. You got to cut down. You got to downsize. Like Babs always says, go back to Fleming. The big set piece of Bond 25. Like this little twig in the wood, and Danny Craig's like,
oh no.
Shit.
I'm trapped.
Where are my snowshoes?
I've tried to pinpoint where the accident happens and where he actually has a part where he summarizes who these people that killed the courier are. They're gypsies. So he deduces that a bunch of gypsies that used to live
not too long ago. They were there because the people that investigated already say, the dogs did pick up some sense. They picked up some scent. I'm pointing to my nose, some sense, but apparently it was the leftover fumes of the gypsies.
But the gypsies were not gypsies. From the interpretation that I got was that they were actually spy. They disappeared apparently in the middle of the night, but they didn't disappear. They just dug a compound, like little tunnels during the winter, before winter, and that's where they've been living and planning and spoiling the fun for shape.
I thought that I had interpreted it differently. My interpretation was that there are these trio of enemy agents that come to learn. One of the reasons why they've settled in this area is because there were gypsies. So they said, the presence of the gypsies will feature as part of our cover. Interesting. I think both of our interpretations are actually kind of cool, though.
Both are.
You said the whole gypsy camp was enemy agents.
I assumed that
they have some stay behind, some sleeper cells.
Or they were just. I mean, they just used the appearance, and while it's a gypsy camp, they were digging and planning and preparing their hideout.
The world of James Bond. Who knows? It could have been that too, So, I like it, though. I like it.
So I looked at the map. It said basically where, like, the road of death is D98. It's near Versailles. So if you type down D98 on Google Maps and Versailles, you can actually more or less do the right. It's not the exact route that he takes, but it gives you an idea. And then my guess is that it must have been more sparsely populated back in the 1950s, because I mean, look at this. And I've also took Google Map views of the streets, and it's a highway. There's so much, like, people are using that route much more today than they were back in the 1950s. Look at it, the spot. Like, there's plenty of cars.
Yeah.
So today, technically, I don't think they could work.
It is early in the morning, though. Doesn't he ride at like 6 or 7 o'clock?
Still,
Something like
that's
that?
rush hour.
Delivery hour, too.
It's 2018. It wouldn't like they would need to set it a different place than Paris and France, somewhere more desolate. But the plot could actually be recycled because the View to a Kill.
It's a cool plot. It is a cool.
It is
plot.
a cool plot. It could actually be the end of the final assault on a little spy compound hidden in the woods.
That would be a hell of a way for Daniel to go out, wouldn't it?
Or whoever ends up being Bond in Bond 26. Yeah, go low key. Always start with low
A little
key.
cave in the wood. A little cave in the woods. Three bad guys.
3 bad guys. Boom, boom, boom.
Start the movie with the biggest pre-title sequence ever.
Like Empire Strikes Back, you start with the Battle of the Hoth and you end with 2 guys fighting.
I keep telling myself the movie starts with the battle. That thing starts like half an hour into the movie.
I know, but it's the first major set piece. They flipped it. We usually do leftovers, and I mean, the entire plot is
the
a leftover.
story is leftover. I know.
The only thing they kept when they did the movie was the title and a location, which is Paris.
Yeah.
Technically, he's in Paris for 2 pages, and then he's off to Versailles and another region of France.
Yeah, so no, there are no real leftovers. Like you said, the whole story is a leftover. But I enjoyed this one. I hadn't read this book in a long time, so my recollection of what the short stories were like was a little bit hazy at best. But I was actually kind of thrilled with
like
this,
this
and
one.
I like the stories where Bond behaves like an investigator, and he's piecing a lot of clues together. He's looking at maps, he's looking at charts, he's sort of planning what he's going to do in the days ahead, and I like those. Some of my favorite passages of the Fleming stories. In fact, we'll get to another one in a couple stories from now, or maybe it's the next one. I don't remember. Where these moments when Bond is alone and he has a lot of thinking to do, but he's on the mission. Like he's in a forest, or he's on a plane, or he's on a boat, or what have you. He's going somewhere. He is going somewhere to accomplish his mission, and he's thinking about the mission and the clue. I like those passages. Fleming is very good at getting in Bond's head, I find.
I've noticed that, well, it's not even that I noticed, but most of these stories are from Bond's point of view. You're in his head. There's no external monologue or external point of view. You are in his head.
Well, we've seen some exceptions in previous books. Like we
Yes.
get in Tanya's head a little bit. We get in Hildebrand's head a little bit.
This one is, you find out the most about Bond and his way of thinking and his past is in this book so far. I feel like just the Paris, how he lost his virginity. That's the first. I would never have thought about his James Bond losing his virginity. Virginity. I'm sorry. Except if it wasn't for this book, like it's you find out more and more. He's fleshed out.
Well, I mean, this is book 8. Yeah, book 8. So I mean, at this point, I would think you're 8 books into this thing. As the author, Ian Fleming, I guess that's par for the course. When you've written so much, you do start injecting additional information. Like we've spent so much time with this character, and yet we don't know his past very well. So Fleming will start peppering his stories with these little details. You know, we go back to recently we reviewed Goldfinger the book, and that one stuck out to me because like 5 or 6 times in that book he sells stuff like, you know, hell and damnation, once more into the breach old friends. It's like in his head he was always joking. Like he hadn't really done that before. So, you know, the more you write about the same character, the more I guess you feel you need to change things up a bit, make him more humorous, or reveal more details about his past, you know. So it's I have no problem with that.
No,
It's not particularly important information, but we've already spent so many books with the character, we might as well get to know him a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
So I find it very interesting. So now we are moving to, well, the title of the book,
What is
the
the
story.
next one?
It's For Your Eyes Only.
For Your Eyes Only?
The Havelocks, a couple of M's personal friends, have been murdered by Cuban hitmen under orders of Herr von Hammerstein, a former Gestapo intelligence officer. for the Cuban Secret Service. M asks Bond for a special favor, an unofficial assignment, to track down the Volux assassin and kill him. Bond travels to Montreal, Canada, and then to Lake Echo in Vermont, and comes across the Havelock's vengeful daughter, Judy. Together, they kill von Hammerstein and his Cuban hitman. So I kept it very straight to the point.
Not even one pun.
It's your specialty.
You watch as many John Bond. You watch them. You know them better than me. How can you not do puns?
I know, but you're better than me at this. So I'm always like, oh, please entertain me.
Simple and efficient. You get to the point at least. I feel mine don't always get to the point.
I'm TD. I'm not very that good with humor. So originally, that short story was, and it's mentioned in the book itself, man's work. Bond says that to
yeah.
Judy.
Oh yeah. He's nonplussed by Judy's presence. Once they come across, although they do come across in a pretty neat fashion. I mean, she gets the little upper hand on him. Yeah, he has no idea what hit him when she shows up. He thinks she's from behind because they're sort of crawling in tall grass. I think something along those lines, and he knows there's something or someone around him. So he sort of speeds up, and as he speeds up, he's approaching the Havelock, not the Havelock estate, but von Hammerstein estate. But suddenly she appears from his side, and he's like, "What? How'd you get there?" So she's not that bad. She's not that bad. This Judy Havelock.
No, she's resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
So the short story starts with the Havelocks. I don't remember the parent's name, unfortunately.
The Colonel.
The Colonel. I can't see that.
Last name Havelock.
Colonel.
First name Colonel.
Mr. and Mrs. Havelock.
Colonel de son prénom.
Oh, no, merci. And they live in Jamaica, and that short story happens in I think in 1959 in October, and they say at one point that they think that the rebels, which are led by Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, are going to make their final push and take control of the country in winter. And if you've seen The Godfather Part 2, it happens in around Christmas time, New Year's Eve, actually, if I remember correctly, 1959. So they're a few weeks away from the revolution hitting and Cuban becoming under.
59. I keep thinking that was in 58, which would make no sense, because why would Fleming be writing about something that is going to happen? I never did 1 + 1 for that one there.
So I don't know, if all those stories are meant to be happening in 1 year, and if they're printed in chronological order, they might not be.
So what you're saying is Fleming writing those words with his golden typewriter is what facilitated Fidel and his friends from usurping power in Cuba.
Either, I don't know if he wrote this short. I think that's the last short story he wrote, and probably wrote it. I don't know if he wrote it in 59 or 60, but my guess is it's the last one he wrote. I have no idea why, if my theory is correct, but because of those details, it makes me think he probably wrote it later. He might have actually wrote it as the Cuban Revolution was happening, or it could be just changed in editing. He could have changed that detail in editing, so I don't know. I'm just theorizing here.
He might have written it a little bit after the successful revolution, and then go back in time a few months and say what
it was
might
printed
happen.
in 60, so I don't know. I really don't know. But I mean, anyway, it was an interesting detail. The von Hammerstein connection is, I think, if I'm correct, von Hammerstein is based on a real Nazi that was also allegedly inspiration for Hugo Drax, and the guy who has a face full of scars. The real von, because there was a von Hammerstein.
I'm sure there are von Hammersteins.
But Nazi, if you Google von Hammerstein, the first picture you get is the real von Hammerstein, and
Scheiße.
he doesn't look like a nice person. He's just bleh. He's very unattractive. No, it's not the same guy I was thinking, but still, he has the lovely face of Nazi. That's the
Oh, Scheiße.
the real one. Well, I'm yeah. Um, he's actually
Just looking at his photograph, I don't want to shake his hand.
yeah, doesn't look like a
I
nice.
mean, the fact that he's a Nazi is not important. I don't want to shake his hand based on the fact that he doesn't look nice.
But I thought it was fascinating because he's a not a what's the term for a war criminal. He's been hiding in Cuba.
Yeah.
And assume
Which is kind of neat because, as history has revealed, a lot of the Nazis that successfully fled Europe at the tail end of the war, a lot of them went to Central South America. I know Argentina and Brazil.
yes,
Argentina definitely. I don't remember about Brazil, but
Argentina. But
a lot of them ended up there. And they made names for them, so they have like business plantations, or they make products. Like they in their adoptive countries, they're perfectly respectable citizens.
they were successful.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I do like that. It's the real world influencing these James Bond stories, which Fleming was, of course, very good at. So.
Yeah, it's very interesting detail. He's not a fully fleshed out character. We don't hear him say a word.
I do like it when he's flash forward to Vermont and he's at this sort of luxurious motel, hotel, or luxury cabins, it looks like, and he has two bodyguards with him, and he takes 2 champagne bottles. He says, "You guys, shoot these." He tosses the bottles into the air. The gunmen shatter the bottles, or the goal is to shatter the bottles, but one of them does a better job. So von Hammerstein allows the winner, so to speak, to spend an evening with one of his sex slaves. If being a Nazi wasn't weird enough, it's like, well, now this guy has to die. He's just a jerk,
Even so the hitman, one of them is featured technically in the movie, but we'll get there at a later date. Gonzalez, he's the only one.
I thought you were referring to one of the 2 gunmen. I'm like, in what scene is it?
No, I think one of them, the 2 Cuban hitmen that hang out with them, one of them is actually Gonzalez.
Oh no, I know. Gonzalez is in the movie.
Yeah, but he's also in the book.
Yes,
and he's the one that has the Avalok's. Like Hammerstein hires him to either bribe them into selling their home, or kill them, and this way he can deal with their daughter Judy and buy it out. Because I think he's transferring his funds from Cuba, because the
gig is up in Cuba because of this looming revolution. Mm-hmm. So they got to get their investments out of that country and invest elsewhere. And what better place than, as I keep saying it, the greatest place on earth, Jamaica. Or as you like to say, Jamaica.
Jamaica.
So, yeah, can't blame him. Still a Nazi, though, but can't blame him.
No, I wouldn't. I think it's a good idea. Obviously, Mr. and Mrs. Avalok refused to sell, thereby condemning themselves to a very quick death. They get shot up.
Oh, yeah, they're riddled with bullets, those poor bastards.
And,
bless their hearts for standing their ground.
Yeah. Judy comes in. I don't know. It's never clear how she finds out about...
She says it. It's a bit of a long-winded explanation. It's revealed that she's done some sexual favors, in part to get the information, but the details escape me. I guess that's kind of like me. The only part I would remember about would be the part about the sexual favors. I don't remember anything else about her story.
I would remember that too.
Oh, I like the fact that they're camouflaged. Like he has a bit of gunk on him.
Yeah.
And she looks a little bit dirty as well.
She's trying to hide because she's super like platinum blonde. She's trying to dirty her hair.
Yeah.
Well, that's later on. Then we move back to London, and M is quite an interesting character in that short story. He's conflicted.
It's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Do I use one of my agents, maybe my best agent, but I'll never tell him, on something to which I have a personal connection? It's a bit of a quandrum, a moral quandrum for him.
And even if it wasn't personal, it's still like a disgusting thing that happened to them. They got murder for basically nothing. So he asked.
You know what? They were murdered for being honest, God-fearing British citizens, and that's good enough reason for me to send 007 in.
Oh, he asks.
Screw them. They're gonna pay.
He asks Bond's opinion, and Bond is basically, these people, because they can't prosecute them technically. Because I guess that even though they're British citizens, the crime didn't happen. I don't think they have enough evidence to prove. So they know who killed them, but they can't do anything about it. So,
Except send 007 in to clean up this mess.
And yeah, when Bond gets a file titled "For Your Eyes Only," and it's an undercover mission, but it's of the books basically, and he gets sent to
Station MC.
boy.
Representing.
We don't spend that much time in Montreal.
No. He spends like a couple of nights.
Yeah, and all the roads that he mentions, I had to Google them because I'm like, I don't remember that road. And all of them have changed since then.
Probably.
Like the 20, he basically takes the 20 and he drives to Ottawa back and forth. And all the like he drives to Pike River, which is a real city, and even Stanbridge. There's Stanbridge Station and Stanbridge East. They kind of changed name. He sleeps also, like I said, in southern Montreal, which is like not the
Brassard. Longueuil.
Longueuil. It's I don't know. It's not very glamorous, I would say.
Yeah, but can you, Matthew, put your thinking cap on for a second here. Can you imagine putting James Bond in the heart of Montreal? I mean, this city is notorious for a wonderful nightlife, for a
Okay, are we talking
wonderful
1950s Montreal or current day?
Oh, it's always been this way, girl.
It was okay. Side note, it was
Actually, that's not true. The Catholic Church was very
But-
present back then. So you can't put James Bond's never going to get the mission done if he sleeps in Montreal. You got to ship him over to Brassard. Nothing, no shit's going to get done.
He's gonna stay here and like
retire here.
pig in filth. So he sleeps in Brassard, heads to Stanbridge East, and takes a long ass walk to Echo Lake.
Stretch those legs.
And by walking, it's 21 hours. So he sleeps. I assume he sleeps in the
I
woods.
think so, yeah.
I'm gonna guess.
And he's pretending to be a hunter. He even has a permit. He's got his equipment. And if he if any, I was about to say security force. If any authorities, notice him, he's supposed to say that he lost his way. 'Cause I don't think he's supposed to be in the United States. He's clandestinely infiltrating into the across the northern border.
I'm sorry. It's through Frisburg. I don't know that city.
What
How
are
he
you
actually
talking about?
walks. He passes through Stanbridge, but he goes to Frelighsburg, and then he walks. But it would have been more sense if he drove to Stansted, which is very close to Echo Lake. If you ever need to go, don't follow Bond's footsteps because you're gonna walk a long.
I'm not going to walk 21 hours.
in the woods.
I like exercise, and I'm not going to walk 21 hours.
Almost like it's 89 or 102 kilometers. No, don't. But if you go to Stansted, it's probably 25, 30 kilometers. It's very close if you look at the map. Okay. This is Echo Lake. This is Stansted. So there's two routes you can, if you walk in the routes, but I mean,
Right.
Google Map doesn't do 1930s smuggler's routes
No.
that he uses in the book to make it to Echo Lake.
Shame.
And even Echo Lake itself, it's a real location, but from what I gathered from the information I read, it's based on Fleming's friend's home. I don't know if it's one of his friends had a home in northern New York, and it's based on his home, the location itself. It's the real. I don't think Fleming ever went to Echo Lake for references. I think he just looked at a map and said, "That's
Good enough."
fine." Yeah. So, I mean, we don't spend that much time in Montreal, or even Ottawa. I looked for the building that he describes, and it's not the same thing. They built a new building for Department of Justice in 1987, and I don't know where the original building is today, or if it's still around. It might have been demolished. Who knows?
I'm in that city a few times per year because I have family over there, and I couldn't quite remember what he was describing.
And if I makes it to Echo Lake, which I've been meaning to drive through just for fun, one of those days I'll drive there. But there's nothing to see. Honestly, it's minuscule lake. So yeah, he finally makes it to Echo Lake. He's spying. He gets surprised by Judy. I keep wanting to call her Melina. And he wants to not.
I was reading the book, Judy. What the hell is Judy? Where's Melina? Oh, wait.
They changed it for the movie. He basically gets into not an argument but
it's not much of an argument when Judy has like a bow and arrow at your head. It's like, well, I guess we'll do it your way.
Yeah.
Let's meet in the middle and say we'll do everything your way.
I'll cover you, basically. Because he wants to kill von Ormstein and her offering, like, cover fire, and they flip it. So she shoots one of her arrows while von Hammerstein is taking a dive in the lake, and he just...
Which is a cool death. I can't recall why she uses a bow and arrow. Does she say why she uses a bow and arrow, or is it just like a thing? It's got metal feathers, right? It's not real feathers.
But I think it's just a thing.
Just a thing. That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
I have this character in my new book, Judy. How are we going to make it? What do the kids say these days? Badass. I'll give a bow and arrow. I say. Bow and arrow. Yeah.
Shootout that happens. All the gunmen get killed. Did the prostitute get killed?
I don't think we know of their fate.
They're like, boop. They stopped.
Yes.
I forgot to say what happened to the prostitute. Sign Ian Fleming.
We'll just say they lived happily ever after.
And ran into the woods and became
feral.
Feral prostitutes. That's weird, even for me. So Bon and Judy got hurt. She got a bullet in, I think, her arm.
Yes.
Something.
Yes. So she's down. I was about to say down for the count. She does not die. Spoilers. But she's injured by through this mission.
She's clipped.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good term.
So they head back through Canada, and he basically brings her to London to meet with M. Who has never met her, even though he apparently was very tight with the Avalux, but hasn't seen them since.
Well, they tight.
For 25 years, he hadn't seen them. It just, it's probably friends that you have great feelings, but you don't spend or live in the same part of the world.
Well, from what little we know of M, of his personal life, just the way he behaves and the way Fleming describes him, it kind of sounds like an M thing. Well, I haven't seen them in 20 years, but we tight. That's his version of tight. The last time I saw them was 20 years ago. He's my best friend.
Okay. Probably write letters. It's 1950s. It's not the same. It's not like they were on Facebook.
No, the Dark Ages, you mean?
Yes, yeah. The Dark Ages.
Thus ends.
For
your eyes only.
I mean, leftovers.
Von Hammerstein. Although I feel like Von Hammerstein is Locke, kind of, in a funny way. I guess.
It's been drained. That story has been drained more than once. Like M sending
Montreal
Bond.
Is leftovers.
Yeah, Montreal. Honestly, the only thing that's pretty much left is the location, Montreal and Vermont. Like him smuggling, going through from Montreal to Vermont is probably because. Bond on a personal mission from M, that's the world is not enough.
Yeah.
The entire bow and arrow with Judy,
and the Havelocks, the Gonzalez.
That's in, and the only thing like von Hammerstein, the former Nazi, that could be adapted. That's actually there's something there because you could have somebody. And even then, it sounds. You know what? It sounds like a Killifer from License to Kill, who's secretly a former CIA agent, but has had to flee the country to become an agent for basically Sanchez. So
Yeah.
it's.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
You know, we read these books, we watch these movies, and it's like, oh, he's in France. Oh, he's in China. Oh, he's in Japan. Now that we've read a book where he goes to Vermont and Montreal,
Short story, but yes.
how did you feel about that?
I liked it. I
Yeah?
loved it.
Okay.
I-
Interesting. It was weird
It was weird because I mean,
because it's not exotic to us. But that must be what.
it's exotic in the way that Back to the Future is exotic. It takes place another time. Like to me, that's more. I'm like all those references because I know those most of the roads he takes. He makes a reference to Saint Anne's. That's Saint Anne de Bellevue. That's the college I went to is John Abbott, and that's in Saint Anne's de Bellevue. That he drove there. I was like, oh, Bob drove near my college.
Yeah,
Kind
I
of
guess so.
dorky stuff, but it's not very exotic because we live here.
Yeah.
But it's exotic because he makes reference and. Stupid thing like the cozy motel, the way it's spelled, they wouldn't be accepted. 10 years later, he couldn't have written that because of language laws change in Quebec and La Révolution Tranquille. They removed a lot of the English language companies and stores since then. Some of them have snuck back in because they're brand names like Walmart and The Brick, but things have changed since the 1950s. So that was kind of interesting in, look at how things were back then.
Yeah.
But as a current storyline, if that story took place today, I wouldn't have been as interested.
Yeah, it loses
No, no.
a little bit of its spice when you.
Yeah, but it's because we're here. I mean,
Yeah, no.
like, somebody reads a Bond story, like Moonraker was fantastic for us, but somebody who lives in London and near the White Cliffs might be like, yeah, it's in my backyard. It's not very exciting, but for us, it was It's a different point of view. But I still liked it. It has a decent action sequence near the end. A lot of interesting side notes. I mean, that's why they drained the story dry because there's interesting stuff in that particular story, notions. So there's almost nothing left but the location.
Yeah, which I would not even necessarily strongly argue in favor of. Like, oh, Bond 25, Bond is going to come to Montreal. All right. I was kind of hoping he'd go to, like, the Philippines or
I
something
wouldn't
like that.
mind if they like. There are interesting locations to film in Quebec. Montreal is an interesting city. Downtown Montreal.
Secret base of operations for Spectre, l'Oratoire Saint-Joseph. And it
No.
blows up at the top at the end.
Actually, if I were playing a Bond story that took place in Quebec, I would do it so that the villain is planning to destroy the dams that power part of the Eastern Americas. Like there's a couple dams, Manic 54321. They're giant dams that power most of Quebec and part of the eastern United States, from what I understood. And I would actually have a villain plan to destroy that. I think that would make for a particularly interesting
That'd
film.
be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
It's like a
And they can
doomsday-
blow up in that order, too. 5, 4, 3,
Yeah.
2, 1.
Could create a massive tidal wave at the same time, destroy people, tragic stuff.
Kill thousands, kill millions.
Yeah, I wish I could. Could you do it as Max Zorin?
We're gonna blow up the dam. I propose that we destroy Hydro-Québec.
Okay, you convinced me that my story idea is terrible now.
Anybody else want to drop out?
All right, so that moves us to the next one. I think I'm doing Quantum of Solace. Am I right?
I hope you are.
Yeah, let me.
And I hope you're doing the one after that, because I only got one more, and it's the last one.
No, don't worry. Just let me bring out my notes. After a mission in Nassau, Bond is told the story about the Nassau governor, It's the story of a relationship between a former civil servant, Philip Masters, and a hair hostess, Rhoda Llewellyn. The relationship turned sour after multiple affairs, and Masters decided to divorce his wife at the end of his assignment in Nassau. Although they continued to appear as a couple in public, he eventually returned to the UK alone, leaving Rhoda destitute. The governor then explains his point to Bond as a law that he named the quantum of solace. It's basically the minimum of humanity and consideration from one person to another to make the relationship work. When it's finished, there's the sum total is at zero, the relationship is over. And the governor finally reveals that Rhoda herself was at the dinner that he just attended. Since then, she married a rich Canadian husband. So that's more or less what happens in Quantum of Solace.
That's exactly what happens in Quantum of Solace.
There's no plot to steal
this
water.
This one is, I mean, I couldn't keep up with this one. It was just so fast and furious. I didn't know. I had to catch my breath every page. I had to stop reading for 10 minutes.
I like I always say, I'm an audio person. I digest most of these books as audiobooks, and then I scan the book just to make certain details more clear. But this one was the most captivating story, and it's one of those stories that has haunted me for years since I initially read it. And I always told myself, if I'm ever in a situation where the relationship doesn't work, where there's no more trust, that I need to get that out.
You can't do what this guy does. I mean, yeah, she hurt him, and she hurt him in a pretty bad way, but that's almost like, it's childish.
Oh, it's vicious.
And it's like, well, you hurt me, I'll hurt you back. Like, adults shouldn't be, they do.
Yeah,
it's human nature.
They do.
But we shouldn't treat ourselves like that. Like, the solution to you hitting me is not me hitting you back harder.
No.
We haven't solved anything.
So
it speaks to
children behave this way, not adults.
Yeah. Well, no, they don't. Well, some adults hit each other back, but it speaks to the cruelty of human nature, and it speaks to how we as individuals, as human beings, will go to that dark place when we've been hurt badly. And maybe for certain individuals, la mesh, the fuse goes off a lot quicker. For some of us, it takes a lot more time for the fuse to go off. But at some point when the fuse goes off, we almost we aren't human anymore. And we start doing things that under any other circumstances, we wouldn't even dream of that. If you told me you'd be doing that, to someone else in the next few months or in the next few years, you're mad. You're positively mad. Yeah. And here we are. Here's what this Masters guy does. He loses his humanity, just as Rhoda maltreated his emotions, and he's a bit of an emotionally, a bit of a wishy-washy guy to begin with. Not that that's
he's emotionally immature, I find.
Yeah, he's in not Arrested Development. He's not dumb, but he doesn't have much life experience. Stagnation, and so he falls prey or victim to her behind the back puppeteering. She's sort of sleeping around left and right, and I guess that emotional immaturity leads to this snowball effect where he just becomes horrifying. As bad as what and let's make it clear, she a bitch. She a bitch. He just steamrolls over her. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Like you cheated on, the solution is not, I'm gonna ruin you. It's just like get your things and get out. I just came out of a relationship, and I could have stayed with the girl I was with last year for longer and tried to, but no, that story actually, it affected me that I had that story in line. I'm like, no, I need to get out. I need to get out. Like when I she told me she was not happy. I'm like, okay, it's over.
You got to make those decisions sometimes, and they're tough. It's not fun to be told that, even though you might know it yourself.
Yeah.
That it's coming to an end. It's not fun to hear. It's not fun to be told, and they're tough decisions. These are tough decisions to make in life. But at sooner or later, you got to realize that. And sometimes it's weird. Huh? Sometimes you just know it. Sometimes you can just sense it that if we tried longer. I was trying to do a double entendre, but it's probably not the conversation. If we try to give this another go, we're just gonna be wasting time and energy.
Yeah.
That's not worth it.
That's the moral of the story, basically, and that's why it haunted me. I've always had that story in my head since I read it years ago, because I'm like, wow, that's ugh. And it made the choice to end the relationship. And like when I tried to take a pass at fixing it, and she was not interested, but deep down, like, I knew.
Unfortunately, the quantum of solace was at 0.
Exactly.
So. Something else that just crossed my mind. I didn't even think I'd bring this up in the conversation, but just our review here. We haven't really talked about we've been more philosophical than anything else, but it's made me think of. Consider this: we have this master's fellow who has been wronged.
Mm-hmm.
And he strikes back in the most vicious way. He's like a super, super micro version of a Bond villain.
Yeah.
Hugo Drax was wronged. I'm going to destroy England. And all these Bond villains, some of them might consider... Silva was wronged. I'm going to get back at him and destroy MI6. This is like that, but on a two-person level.
Doesn't he have a realization near the end that, like, he thinks he has an exciting life, but like... real people have sometimes even like that's vicious, and your summation is actually correct. That's a Bond villain. Like I got hurt. I'm gonna, and the only difference between like this story could have ended with domestic violence, murder.
We'll get to domestic violence. That's an.
But that could have been the end of the story. Comes home, boom, boom, shoots her. That's it. Double.
He's a minor league Dr. No.
Yeah, I'm gonna screw you as much as possible, coming short of actually killing you. It's and her desperation, but to her credit, she did bounce back.
Yeah, she has. I mean, she's maybe a little bit boring according to Bond. Theaters and this and that, but. She made some sort of a life for her. So she's, I guess, what she is? She's like late 50s, early 60s. I guess she's a bit of a gold digger. I guess that's what they call those,
Yeah. But
Doesn't she play golf? And through golf, she meets a handsome young buck who's a bit of a socialite as well. So she's kind of a gold digger anyways, which, that unbeknownst to her that Masters was capable of such thorough and emphatic revenge, but if you're sort of emotionally stunted, as you put it, the gold digger is going to take you for a ride. I mean, you got no chance. Until he chooses to do that.
He chooses to like destroy her, basically. It's just wow. I mean, they used the title like Leftovers Ones. They used the title, and that's about it. That's it.
And the governor's explanation, the definition, because it's his own term, so he defines it, his own definition of the quantum of solace. Looking back at the film, does his definition of what a quantum of solace is apply to that movie? Feels like even the definition would have to be changed for it to...
I'll tell you where they could actually snuck a version of the story in that film, and I'm pretty sure it was the plan at one point. And it might have... I'm guessing it makes no sense that when Mattis and Bond are in the plane and heading to... what's the name of the country?
Panama?
No.
Not Panama, Bolivia.
Bolivia. They're heading to Bolivia. And he talks to Bond. Bond is drinking like plenty of Vespers, and then he asks Bond, "Have you slept?" Like this is where Mattis should tell the story.
I have this funny theory. That,
No. There is how you do it. He tells a story. It's like, when I was younger, I was married once. Let's call her Rhoda. Rhoda, what a lady she was. She was beautiful. She was gorgeous. She was smart. sharp, but she was not the most trustful person. She cheated on me plenty of times. And at one point, I couldn't take it, so I told her, I'm going to divorce you when my turn of duty is over.
Once I get that promotion to the deuxième bureau.
Something like that. And he tells a story, and he ends up saying, when I left, I took everything from her. I took the money. I bankrupted her. She was miserable for years, and I always felt guilty about it. And that's when I did that, because my quantum of solace towards her was at 0. And you would have Bond say, quantum of solace? What is that? So,
it's not bad, actually. It's all right.
It would have made more sense than calling the secret organization Quantum.
Actually, you know what? I like it so much. Go on. I'll do the rest of the movie now.
But that's this is the only thing in that movie. Well, not the only thing, but this is one of. They would have had a scene like that, and it would have made it like it would have given a little bit of Casino Royale flavor. It would have given character to Mattis. Yeah. It would have made. And you could have said to Bond, that's what happened to you. You lost your quantum of solace after Vesper betrayed you. You're broken. You can't get it back. You have to let it go.
Or you could tie both together. It coded my quantum of solace, and Bond sort of raises quantum. That's the name of the villainous organization I'm after.
You don't need that.
It all makes sense now.
That name, you shouldn't name the organization. It makes basically 2 movies later. It's now Spectre.
Spectre.
Spectre. So this is my fix, and and now they can't really use that story, because they could have this discussion in the movie, but you can't use quantum of solace.
No, I'd rather they not have the discussion in the movie, because that would mean Vesper would be brought up again.
No, but
enough.
No, but I mean, the story, you could have adapted it as another character saying another story. You don't need to bring back. That could be in Bond 26. But I'm saying, because they used the name Quantum of Solace, you can't have somebody tell the story of losing your Quantum of Solace, which they ruined that whatever valor that story had. It's now pointless to try and bring it up in another Bond movie.
or you go meta, okay, and somebody does tell that story. Bond raises it. Why does that sound familiar? It's because he was in a movie called Quantum of Solace.
Quantum of Solace, yeah. I mean, do you have any other thoughts about this one? This is it's an interesting story,
and I think it encouraged a slightly different conversation than what we normally have, which I enjoyed. As far as the plot concerns, there's not really a whole lot to say. I like Bond's comment. He doesn't like Nassau because of too many rich people in their party, which sounds like it goes back to that. We talk about Bond every episode, but whenever we talk about his character, who he is, and his likes and dislikes, and so on and so forth, like, he is very middle down the road. He's establishment, but he's also anti-establishment. So, he's very picky, he's very finicky, he's very snobbish, but he doesn't like rich people who are usually considered snobbish. So it's sort of like
wrong
that
to
weird...
be a snob unless I'm doing it, basically.
It's a very Bond, it's kind of Bond in a nutshell, so to speak. So why not? It fit. I liked that line because it felt like, that sounds like something he would say, despite the fact that he himself is a snob.
Yeah, we're gonna break this episode in 2. We're gonna be back with what do we have left? We
Risico.
Can you see?
Risico.
And the Hildebrand Rarity.
Hildebrand Rarity? The Hildebrand Rarity. We are everywhere on social media, as I like to think. We are at www.thejamesbondcomplex.com. We have a Facebook page, which is kind of gaining popularity, I feel. Just search for us at the James Bond Complex. We have a Twitter account. It's at the Bond Complex. We have an Instagram account if you're for the photographers out there. Just search for us at the James Bond Complex. Please search and download us at Google Play. Please search, subscribe, review, and rate us on iTunes. Give us a good old 005-star rating. We're on Twitter, you and I individually. I'm at 00pop. That's the word double_OH_pop.
You made a mistake when you picked that band.
I've gotten so accustomed to explaining it that it's like second nature at this point.
Good. Mine's Matt O'Clair.
And just as James Bond is wont to return, so too would the James Bond complex in part 2 of our short story for Eyes Only conversation. Merci, à la prochaine.
Au revoir.